Ella's hands trembled as she held the torn fabric of her uniform against her chest, the sound of ripping still echoing in the marble hallway. Blood trickled from a scratch on her cheek where Alexa's diamond ring had caught her skin. The entire mansion staff stood frozen, witnessing what no one dared to stop. "You think you can walk around my house like you belong here?" Alexa's voice dripped with venom, her perfectly manicured hand still raised. "You're nothing but hired help, and you'll never be anything more." Ella's 5-year-old son, Caleb, was waiting for her at her mother's apartment across town, counting on the money from this job to pay for his asthma medication. She couldn't afford to lose this position, no matter how much humiliation she had to endure. Her jaw clenched, but she kept her eyes down. Then she heard it, the sound that made everyone in the room stop breathing. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, commanding. Gabriel Barcelos had entered the hallway. No one had realized he was home. If you want to discover how this explosive confrontation began and what Gabriel did next, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Every view helps bring more stories like this one. Now, let's go back to where it all started. 3 weeks earlier. 3 weeks earlier, Ella Harris stood at the servants' entrance of the Barcelos mansion in the wealthy hills outside Atlanta, Georgia. Her worn sneakers looked painfully out of place against the Italian marble steps. She clutched her worn purse containing her fake references, documents she'd paid too much for, but desperately needed. The morning sun was barely up, but she'd already dropped Caleb at her mother's place and taken 2 buses to get here. This job paid 3 times what she made at the diner, and she needed it. Caleb's medication costs were climbing, and her mother's landlord had just raised the rent again. "You the new girl?" A kind-faced older woman opened the door. She had warm brown eyes and silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun. "I'm Anna Sanchez, head housekeeper."
Come in, child. You look exhausted. Thank you, ma'am.
"I'm Ella." Anna led her through a service corridor that was larger than Ella's entire apartment. Everything gleamed. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, artwork that probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. "Mr. Barcelos is rarely home," Anna explained as they walked. "He travels constantly for business." "Mrs. Barcelos?" Anna's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Mrs. Barcelos is very particular. Keep your head down, do your work well, and stay out of her way." Ella nodded, mentally filing away the warning. Her first week passed in a blur of learning routines, memorizing which rooms to clean when, and trying to become invisible. She saw Alexa Dawson Barcelos only from a distance, a tall, elegant woman with honey blonde hair and a wardrobe that could feed a neighborhood. She moved through the mansion like she owned not just the house, but everyone in it. On her 8th day, everything changed. Ella was cleaning the library, a 2-story room filled with leather-bound books that probably had never been read. She was on a ladder, carefully dusting the upper shelves when she heard voices in the hallway. "I don't care what excuses you have, Ricardo. The shipment arrives Tuesday, and I want it handled personally." The voice was deep, authoritative, with a slight accent that made certain words sound almost musical. Ella froze on the ladder. She'd been told Mr. Barcelos wouldn't be home for another week. "Yes, boss. I'll handle it myself." Another male voice, respectful, almost reverent.
Good.
"And the situation with the Koss family under control. They know better than to push boundaries now." The library door opened. Ella's heart hammered as she tried to shrink into invisibility on the ladder. She kept her back turned, continuing to dust the same shelf over and over, praying they wouldn't notice her.
Leave me.
"I need to think." The deep voice again. "Of course, Gabriel." Footsteps retreated. The door closed. Silence filled the library. Ella didn't dare move. She could feel eyes on her back, assessing, evaluating. She'd heard enough about Gabriel Barcelos from the other staff to know he was someone you didn't want to cross. The rumors painted him as ruthless in business, connected to powerful families, both Italian and Latino, a man who'd built an empire on respect and fear in equal measure. "You can turn around. I know you're there." His voice wasn't angry, just matter of fact. Ella slowly turned on the ladder, her hands gripping the sides for balance. She looked down and met his eyes for the first time. Gabriel Barcelos stood at the base of the ladder, hands in the pockets of his tailored charcoal suit. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 40, with dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that seemed to see everything. A thin scar ran along his jawline, the only imperfection in an otherwise striking face. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that made the enormous library feel suddenly smaller. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll leave." Ella started to climb down.
Stay.
Finish your work. If you're enjoying this story and want to see what happens next, please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us as we continue bringing these stories to life. He moved to the leather chair near the fireplace, unbuttoning his jacket as he sat. "What's your name?" "Ella Harris, sir." "How long have you worked here, Ella Harris?" "8 days, sir." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise maybe, or curiosity. "And what do you think of the Barcelos household so far?" It was a test. It had to be. Ella chose her words carefully. "It's a beautiful home, sir. I'm grateful for the opportunity to work here." Diplomatic? Was that amusement in his voice? "Tell me, do you actually read, or do you just dust books?" The question caught her off guard. I read, sir, when I have time." "What was the last book you read?" Ella's mind raced. Would he judge her for her choices? 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Now she definitely had his attention. Gabriel leaned forward slightly, his dark eyes intense. "In English or Spanish?" "English, sir. My Spanish isn't good enough for the original." "But you speak Spanish a little." "I took it in high school. I've been trying to improve it on my own." Gabriel stood walking to a shelf nearby. He pulled down a worn Spanish copy of the same book.
Take this. Read it.
"Tell me what you think when you're done." Ella stared at the book he held out to her, confused. "Sir, I don't understand. I'm curious to hear your perspective." The translation loses something essential. He placed the book in her hands when she didn't take it. His fingers brushed hers for a fraction of a second, and she felt the calluses on his palms. Unexpected on someone so wealthy. "That's not a request, Miss Harris. It's an assignment." Before she could respond, the library door burst open. "Gabriel, I didn't know you were home." Alexa swept in wearing a white silk robe, her hair perfect despite the early hour. Then her eyes landed on Ella, still on the ladder holding the book, and her expression transformed into something cold and suspicious. "What's going on here?" "I'm working, Alexa." "This is Ella, one of the housekeeping staff." Gabriel's tone had changed, becoming distant, formal. Alexa's eyes narrowed as she looked Ella up and down with unconcealed disdain. "Anna should know better than to schedule cleaning when you're trying to work." "I'll speak to her about it."
Don't.
Gabriel's single word carried absolute authority. "I asked her to continue. I needed the room cleaned." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Alexa's smile was razor sharp. "Of course, darling. Whatever you prefer. I'll leave you to your work." She emphasized the last word, her eyes promising that this wasn't over. After she left, Gabriel returned to his chair. "You can go, Miss Harris and Ella." He looked up, his expression unreadable. "Don't let my wife intimidate you. You have as much right to be in this house as anyone else who works here." Ella climbed down, clutching the book like a lifeline. As she left the library, she could feel his eyes on her back. She didn't understand what had just happened, but she knew with absolute certainty that her life had just become infinitely more complicated. That night, lying in bed in her tiny apartment with Caleb sleeping beside her, Ella opened the Spanish book. She didn't know why Gabriel Barcelos cared whether she could read Garcia Marquez in the original language. She didn't know why a man like him would waste even 5 minutes of his time talking to someone like her, but she knew she would read it. She would read every word. What she didn't know was that Gabriel, in his study, 3 floors above the library, was thinking about the maid with intelligent eyes who'd read 100 Years of Solitude, or that Alexa was in her private sitting room, already planning how to remove this new threat before it could take root. The wheels of fate had begun to turn, and none of them could stop what was coming. 2 weeks into her employment, Ella had established a careful routine. She arrived before dawn, completed her assignments efficiently, and stayed invisible. The Spanish copy of the novel traveled with her everywhere, on buses, during her lunch break, late at night after Caleb fell asleep. The language was difficult, but she was stubborn. Gabriel was gone most of the time, traveling for business that no one discussed in detail. When he was home, she felt his presence like a magnetic field, always aware of where he was, even when she couldn't see him. Occasionally, she'd catch him watching her with those intense dark eyes, his expression thoughtful. He never spoke to her again, not directly, but she felt the weight of his attention. Alexa, meanwhile, had turned her attention to making Ella's life quietly miserable. Assignments would change at the last minute. Items would be misplaced, and Ella would be blamed. Small petty humiliations that never quite crossed the line to something Anna could address formally. She does this, Anna confided one afternoon as they folded linens. Find someone she perceives as a threat and tries to break them. Don't give her the satisfaction. A threat? I'm a maid. Anna gave her a knowing look. Mr. Barcelos noticed you, child. That's enough. On a humid Thursday afternoon, everything escalated. Ella was cleaning Alexa's private sitting room, a task she'd been dreading all day. The room was a shrine to excess, silk curtains, velvet furniture, and enough crystal figurines to open a store. She worked carefully, knowing that even the smallest mistake would be magnified. She was dusting a shelf of photographs when one frame caught her attention. It was a wedding photo. Alexa and Gabriel on the steps of an enormous church. Alexa looked radiant, triumphant, but Gabriel's expression made Ella pause. He was smiling, but his eyes were empty. It was the look of someone going through motions, fulfilling an obligation. Find something interesting. Ella spun around. Alexa stood in the doorway, arms crossed, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than Ella's yearly salary.
No, ma'am.
I apologize. I'll finish quickly. And you're new here, so let me educate you about how things work. Alexa moved closer, her heels clicking on the hardwood.
Gabriel is mine.
This house is mine. Everyone in it belongs to me. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. I don't think you do. Alexa picked up one of the crystal figurines. A delicate swan. You see, girls like you come through here thinking you're special. Maybe Gabriel noticed you for 2 seconds. Maybe he was polite. And you start getting ideas. She turned the figurine in her hands, the light catching its facets. Those ideas are dangerous.
I have no ideas, Mom.
I'm just trying to work.
Really?
Then why did my husband give you a book from his personal collection? So she'd been watching. Ella kept her face neutral. He asked me to read it. I didn't request it. And you think that's appropriate? A man giving his maid gifts? It's a book, ma'am, not a gift. The figurine flew past Ella's head, shattering against the wall behind her. Ella flinched, but didn't move otherwise. Alexa's smile was predatory. Oops, how clumsy of me. Clean that up. And Ella? She leaned in close, her perfume clawing. If you mention this conversation to anyone, Anna, Ricardo, especially Gabriel, I'll make sure you never work in this city again. I have that power.
Don't test me.
After she left, Ella carefully swept up the shattered crystal, her hands shaking. A piece of glass had cut her finger, and she watched the blood drip onto the dustpan, mixing with the glittering shards. She understood now. This wasn't about Gabriel noticing her. This was about Alexa needing to feel in control, needing to dominate. And Ella was an easy target, vulnerable, dependent on this job, with no power to fight back. That evening, as she left through the servants' entrance, she nearly collided with someone in the darkened hallway. Perdón? Gabriel's hand shot out, steadying her. He was in casual clothes, dark jeans, and a black shirt. Unusual for him. Ella, working late? Yes, sir. I'm just leaving. His eyes narrowed. What happened to your hand? Ella had wrapped her cut finger in a bandage, but blood had seeped through. Just a small accident? Nothing serious. Gabriel took her hand before she could pull away, examining the bandage with a frown. What kind of accident? Broke a crystal figurine while cleaning. My fault for being careless. She could feel his eyes on her face, searching for the truth. His thumb brushed against her wrist, and she felt her pulse jump. He was standing too close, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Alexa's sitting room. His voice had gone quiet. Dangerous. Sir, I really should go. Did she throw it at you? The question hung in the air between them. Ella knew she should lie, should protect herself from becoming even more entangled in whatever complicated dynamic existed between Gabriel and his wife. But something in his expression, genuine concern mixed with carefully controlled anger, made her hesitate. It was an accident, she said finally. That's not an answer to my question. It's the only answer I can give you, Mr. Barcelos. They stood there in the dimly lit hallway, his hand still holding her injured one, the air thick with unspoken words. Ella's heart hammered so hard she was sure he could hear it. You've been reading, he said finally, releasing her hand. Yes, sir. What do you think so far? The sudden change of subject threw her. It's beautiful, heartbreaking. The Spanish makes it more vivid, somehow more alive, like the words themselves are magic. Gabriel's expression softened almost imperceptibly. That's exactly right. Magic realism isn't magic at all. It's the world seen through the right eyes. He paused, then added, You should go home. It's late. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Ella, if my wife ever threatens you again, I want to know about it. She looked back, surprised. He stood in the shadows, backlit by the hall light, looking more dangerous than she'd ever seen him. That's not just a suggestion, he continued. It's a direct order. Do you understand? Yes, sir.
Good.
Ella left, her mind spinning. She didn't understand Gabriel Barcelos at all. One minute, he was the cold mafia boss the staff whispered about. The next, he was showing her kindness that felt almost protective. It was confusing and dangerous, and she needed to shut it down before it became something more complicated. But that night, reading Garcia Marquez on the bus home, she caught herself smiling at a passage and thinking about what Gabriel would say about it, and she knew she was in trouble. What she didn't know was that Gabriel was in his study, staring at nothing, his mind full of a maid with intelligent eyes and a stubborn determination to improve herself despite every obstacle life had thrown at her. He'd noticed the worn shoes, the way she never took leftovers from the kitchen like the other staff, the exhaustion she tried to hide. He'd also noticed the way she'd refused to give up Alexa, even when pressed, protecting herself while maintaining her dignity. It had been a long time since anyone had genuinely interested him, and that he knew was dangerous for both of them. The following week brought unexpected chaos. Gabriel's younger sister, Bianca, arrived from New York, turning the mansion into a whirlwind of activity. Ella first saw her in the foyer, a stunning woman in her early 30s with Gabriel's dark eyes and an easy smile that transformed her entire face. You must be Ella. Bianca grabbed her hand warmly. Gabriel mentioned you're reading 100 Years of Solitude in Spanish. That's incredibly ambitious. Ella glanced nervously toward the stairs where Alexa was likely listening. I'm just trying to learn, Mom. Call me Bianca, please. Ma'am makes me feel ancient. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. I hear you're brilliant. My brother never pays attention to anyone, so you must be special. Before Ella could respond, Anna called her away to help with Bianca's luggage. But as she worked throughout the day, she noticed Bianca watching her with curious, approving eyes. That afternoon, disaster struck. Ella was crossing the main hallway with a tray of crystal glasses for the dining room when she heard Caleb's voice. Her blood turned to ice.
Mama.
She spun around. Her 5-year-old son stood in the main entrance, held by a security guard who looked confused about what to do with him. Caleb's face was strewn with tears, and he was clutching his inhaler. Baby, what are you doing here? Ella sat down the tray and rushed to him, pulling him into her arms. Her mind raced. Her mother was supposed to pick him up from kindergarten. Something must have happened. Grandma fell down. Caleb sobbed into her shoulder. She told me to come find you. She gave me the paper with the address. Is Grandma okay? The neighbor lady called the ambulance. Mama, I was scared. Ella's world tilted. Her mother. An ambulance. And Caleb here in the Barcelos mansion where she'd explicitly told her family never to come. What is this? Alexa's voice cut through the foyer like ice. She stood on the landing above, looking down with an expression of pure fury. Who was that child? Ella stood, keeping Caleb behind her. My son, ma'am. There's been a family emergency. I'll take him home immediately. And your son? Alexa descended the stairs slowly, deliberately. You have a child and didn't disclose it on your application. I disclosed it to Anna, ma'am. Anna doesn't make hiring decisions. I do. Alexa's eyes glittered with something like triumph. This is grounds for immediate termination. Lying on official documents bringing unauthorized persons into the home. He's 5 years old, and he's scared. Ella interrupted, her voice shaking. My mother is on her way to the hospital. I understand if you need to fire me, but please let me take my son home first. You're not going anywhere until what's going on here? Gabriel's voice echoed through the foyer. He stood at the entrance to his study, taking in the scene. Alexa on the stairs. Ella holding a crying child. The security guard looking uncomfortable. Alexa recovered quickly. Gabriel, this maid has been lying to us. She has a child she never disclosed, and now she's brought him into our home without permission. Time terminating her employment immediately. Gabriel's gaze moved to Caleb, who had turned to peek at him from behind Ella's legs. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Gabriel descended the stairs, his expression unreadable. He walked past Alexa, without looking at her, stopping directly in front of Ella and Caleb. He crouched down to Caleb's eye level. What's your name? Caleb, the boy whispered, clutching his inhaler. That's a strong name. Caleb, I'm Gabriel. Your mom works here, and she's very good at her job. He glanced at the inhaler. Do you need that right now?
Caleb shook his head. Good.
Can you be brave for a few more minutes while I help your mom? Caleb nodded. Gabriel stood, turning to Alexa. His voice was soft, but everyone in the foyer felt the steel beneath it. Go to your room. Excuse me? I said go to your room now. Alexa's face flushed red. Gabriel, you can't possibly. I can and I am. Gabriel's voice never rose, but the authority in it was absolute. This is my house. These are my employees, and you've just threatened to fire someone during a family emergency involving a child. I'll deal with you later. The silence that followed was deafening. Alexa looked around the foyer, seeing the security guard, carefully avoiding her eyes. Anna standing in the doorway, with her arms crossed. Bianca on the landing above, wearing an expression of barely concealed approval. You'll regret this, Alexa hissed. But she turned and climbed the stairs, her heels clicking furiously against the marble. Gabriel pulled out his phone. Ricardo, bring the car around. We have an emergency. He looked at Ella. Which hospital? Sir, I can take the bus. Which hospital?
Ella.
Grady Memorial. But really, I don't need to get to your mother. Caleb needs to not be scared, and neither of you needs to be on a bus right now. He gestured toward the door.
Come on.
10 minutes later, Ella found herself in the back of a black Mercedes SUV. Caleb asleep in her arms as they drove through Atlanta traffic. Gabriel sat in the passenger seat making phone calls in rapid Spanish and English, arranging things she didn't quite understand. When they pulled up to the hospital, Gabriel turned to her. Go check on your mother. I'll wait here with Caleb. You don't have to. I know I don't have to, but I'm going to. He met her eyes. Your mother is your priority right now. Let me help. Inside the hospital, Ella learned her mother had fallen and broken her hip. She'd need surgery and would be hospitalized for at least a week. Ella sat in the waiting room, her head in her hands, trying to figure out how she would manage Caleb. Work, hospital visits, and bills she couldn't afford to pay. Miss Harris, a hospital administrator, approached. I have good news. Your mother's surgery and hospital stay have been covered by a charitable fund. Everything has been taken care of. Ella stared at her. I don't understand what fund. I'm not at liberty to say, but all financial concerns have been addressed. Your mother will receive the best possible care, Gabriel. It had to be. When she went back outside, she found him sitting on a bench outside the emergency room entrance. Caleb on his lap, reading him a story from a book that hadn't been there before. Caleb was giggling at Gabriel's animated voices for the characters. Mama Caleb saw her and scrambled down. Mr. Gabriel bought me a book and ice cream, and he talks funny like the abuelos at my school. Gabriel stood, brushing off his expensive suit pants where Caleb had been sitting. How's your mother? She needs surgery. They say she'll be okay. Ella's voice cracked. Mr. Barcelos, I don't know how to thank you.
Don't.
He cut her off gently. Family emergencies happen. You needed help. I provided it. That's all. The hospital bill is handled. I can't accept Ella. Gabriel's voice was firm, but not unkind. Pride is a luxury you can't afford right now. Your mother needs surgery. Your son needs you. Let me help. You can pay me back by continuing to be the kind of person who reads Garcia Marquez in Spanish on the bus at night to improve herself. Deal. Tears blurred her vision. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. Now, do you have someone who can watch Caleb while you're working? My neighbor? Maybe. I'll figure something out. Gabriel was quiet for a moment. Then bring him to the house.
What?
Bring Caleb to work with you. We have an entire east wing that no one uses. Anna can keep an eye on him when you're working. Bianca will probably adopt him. She's obsessed with kids. It's better than leaving him with a neighbor when your mother can't be there. Mr. Barcelos, I couldn't possibly. Yes, you can and you will. He pulled out his keys, handing them to Ricardo, who'd been waiting discreetly by the car. Ricardo will drive you home. Take tomorrow off to get Caleb settled and check on your mother. When you come back, bring him with you. Your wife will never allow. My wife, Gabriel said quietly, doesn't make decisions about my staff or my house. I do, and I've decided. He looked down at Caleb, who was yawning. Besides, I think this little guy and I are going to be friends. Right, Caleb?
Right.
Caleb grinned up at him sleepily. As Ricardo drove them home, Ella held her sleeping son and tried to process everything that had happened. Gabriel Barcelos had stood up to his wife for her. He'd paid for her mother's surgery. He'd invited her son into his home, and he'd done it all with a quiet certainty that suggested he'd never even considered doing anything less. She didn't know what to do with this version of Gabriel Barcelos, the man who was dangerous and powerful, but who'd spent an hour reading stories to a 5-year-old with genuine warmth. What she did know was that she was falling into something deep and complicated, and she had no idea how to stop it. In the mansion, Gabriel stood in his study, looking out over the city lights. Bianca joined him, handing him a drink. That was quite a display, she said, watching him carefully. She needed help. So do a lot of people. You don't usually get personally involved. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment.
She's different. I can see that.
The question is, can you handle what comes next? Because Alexa isn't going to let this go. You publicly humiliated her over a maid. Over a person who was being threatened during a family crisis. Gabriel. Bianca's voice was gentle. I like Ella. She seems intelligent, strong, genuine. But you're married, and you're not free to. I know what I'm not free to do. Gabriel's voice was hard. But I can protect someone who works for me. I can ensure her mother gets proper medical care. I can help her son. Those things I can do, and I will. And if it becomes more than that, Gabriel didn't answer. Because he didn't know, or maybe because he did know, and that was the problem. The next 2 weeks established a new precarious balance. Caleb became a fixture in the east wing of the mansion, enchanting Anna and the staff with his brightness. Bianca spoiled him shamelessly, buying him books and toys, and teaching him Spanish words. Even Ricardo, Gabriel's intimidating right-hand man, could be found playing cards with the boy during breaks. Ella worked harder than ever, determined to prove she deserved the extraordinary kindness Gabriel had shown her. She finished the Spanish novel and left it on Gabriel's desk with a handwritten note discussing the themes of cyclical time and the weight of family history. He left a response with another book, this time Nuda's poetry. A dangerous routine developed. Gabriel would be in his study late at night working. Ella would finish her duties and find herself drawn to the library next door. Sometimes they'd talk through the open doorway about books, about language, about nothing and everything. He learned about her dreams of finishing college someday, about Caleb's intelligence and humor. She learned about his younger self before the family business claimed him when he'd thought about being a teacher. They never touched. They never crossed any visible line, but the air between them crackled with something neither of them named. Alexa watched it all with a cold, calculated fury. The breaking point came on a rainy Wednesday evening. Gabriel had been away for 5 days on business. Caleb had a bad asthma attack on the second day, and Anna had called Gabriel to inform him. He'd arranged for the family doctor to make a house call immediately, something Ella could never have afforded otherwise. Dr. Sanchez had prescribed new medication and left detailed instructions. When Gabriel returned that evening, his first question was about Caleb. Ella was in the kitchen helping Anna prepare dinner when he strode in, still in his travel clothes, hair damp from the rain. "How is he?" Ella looked up, startled. "He's much better." The new medication worked quickly. Dr. Sanchez said, "Show me." It wasn't a request. Ella led him to the East Wing where Bianca was reading to Caleb, who was curled up on a couch with a blanket looking sleepy but healthy. "Mr. Gabriel." Caleb's face lit up. "Bella is reading me about knights." Gabriel crossed to the couch, sitting on the edge to feel Caleb's forehead with the back of his hand. "No fever." "No, sir," Ella said softly. "He's doing much better." "Good." Gabriel smiled at Caleb. "You scared everyone, little man." "No more of that. I didn't mean to be sick." "I know, but you're strong like your mama." The moment stretched, tender and domestic, until Alexa's voice shattered it like glass. How touching. She stood in the doorway, dressed for an evening out, dripping expensive perfume and contempt. The Mafia boss playing house with the help. What would the family say? Gabriel stood slowly. "Alexa, we're about to have a conversation you won't enjoy." "Not here." He looked at Bianca.
"Can you? I've got him."
Bianca pulled Caleb closer, deliberately turning away from Alexa. Gabriel's hand touched Ella's arm briefly, a warning or comfort. She wasn't sure.
"Come with me."
In the hallway outside, the confrontation exploded. "I've tried to be patient," Alexa hissed. "I've tried to ignore the way you humiliate me with your obvious preference for that woman, but this bringing her bastard child into our home, making him comfortable while you act like a human being." Gabriel's voice was dangerously quiet, like someone with basic compassion. "She's a maid, Gabriel. She's nothing. And you're making me look like a fool. You're making yourself look like a fool." "Ella is an employee who experienced a family emergency. I helped. That's all. That's all." Alexa laughed bitterly. "You think I don't see how you look at her? You think the staff doesn't talk? Everyone knows." "Everyone knows what? That I refuse to let you bully someone who works for me? That I ensured a child got medical care? What exactly do people know, Alexa? That you're falling for her?" The words burst out of Alexa like venom. "You're in love with the maid, and everyone can see it except apparently you." The silence that followed was absolute. Gabriel's expression didn't change, but Ella, standing frozen in the hallway, saw something shift in his eyes. A recognition, an acknowledgement of something he'd been avoiding. "Get out," he said finally. "What?" "Pack your things. Go stay with your mother in Charleston. I need time to think, and I can't do it with you here stirring up drama." "You're throwing me out for her? I'm asking you to leave, so we can both gain some perspective. If you refuse, I'll have Ricardo drive you. Your choice." Alexa's face twisted with rage. She turned and Ella tried to shrink into the wall, but it was too late. Alexa saw her there. "You," she snarled, advancing. "How you destroyed my marriage. You came into my house with your poverty and your sob stories and your little bastard. Watch your mouth." Gabriel moved between them, his voice like steel.
"You will not speak to her that way."
"Or what? You'll choose her over me?" "She's nothing, Gabriel. She has nothing. She's not even pretty. She's just some broke black girl," who the slap echoed through the hallway. But it wasn't Gabriel who delivered it. Ella stood there, her hand still raised, her chest heaving, her eyes blazing with a fury that had been building for weeks. "My son," she said, her voice shaking, "is not a bastard. He's a beautiful, brilliant, kind child who has more grace in his little finger than you'll have in your entire life. And I might be broke. I might be just a maid, but I have never, not once, treated another human being the way you treat people. Alexis stared at her, a red mark blooming on her cheek. Then she smiled. You just assaulted me in front of witnesses. I could have you arrested. I could destroy you. Do it, Ella said. Call the police. Tell them how you've spent weeks tormenting me, breaking things and blaming me, threatening my job every time your husband showed me basic human decency. Tell them about the crystal swan you threw at my head. I dare you, Alexa. Gabriel's voice cut through the tension.
Pack now.
You have 1 hour before Ricardo drives you to the airport.
Fine.
Alexa's smile was vicious. But when I come back, she's gone. That child is gone. And you and I are going to remember our vows and the power of my family connections. My father didn't marry me off to the Barcelos family, so I could be humiliated by hired help. She swept away, her heels clicking furiously. Ella stood there, adrenaline making her shake. She'd just slapped her employer's wife. She just guaranteed she'd lose this job, probably be sued. Definitely never work in this city again. Gabriel turned to her, and she braced for the explosion. Instead, he started laughing. It was a surprised, genuine sound, something breaking loose in him. Did you just slap my wife?
I'm so sorry.
I'll pack my things, and you're not going anywhere. Gabriel was still smiling, something wild and free in his expression. That was the most honest thing anyone said in this house in years. But I hit her. I'm going to get fired or arrested or Ella. He stepped closer, and suddenly the hallway felt very small. You've spent weeks enduring Alexa's abuse without complaining. You've worked twice as hard as anyone else. You've been nothing but professional despite impossible circumstances. And when she called your son a bastard, you defended him. That's not a firing offense. That's being a good mother. She's going to sue me. Her family is powerful. You said so yourself. Her family is powerful. Mine is more so. Gabriel's expression hardened. And I protect what's mine. My employees, my home, He stopped, something flickering across his face. You're what? The moment stretched between them, dangerous and electric. They were standing too close. The air thick with everything they hadn't said. All the late-night conversations and careful avoidance and growing connection that neither of them had acknowledged.
Papa.
Caleb's voice broke the spell. He appeared in the hallway, rubbing his eyes. I had a dream. Gabriel stepped back. Ella scooped Caleb up, grateful for the interruption and devastated by it in equal measure. I'll take him home, she said quietly. He shouldn't be here for this. Ricardo will drive you. Gabriel pulled out his phone, already moving back into the persona of the Mafia boss, the man in control. Take tomorrow off. I need to deal with some things. When you come back, we'll talk about what happens next. That night, Ella lay awake in her tiny apartment, Caleb snoring softly beside her, and tried to make sense of everything. She'd slapped Alexa Dawson Barcelos. Gabriel had laughed. He'd defended her. He'd called her his. And Alexa had been right about one thing. Everyone could see what was happening between them. Even Ella could see it now, had felt it in the hallway, in the charged air and unfinished sentences. She was falling in love with Gabriel Barcelos, and he was falling in love with her. And it was impossible and dangerous, and would destroy both of them. But she couldn't stop it. Neither could he. The storm was coming, and all they could do was face it together. 2 days passed in tense silence. Ella stayed away from the mansion, using her day off to visit her mother in the hospital and try to figure out what came next. Her mother, recovering from surgery, took one look at her face and knew. You're in love with him. She said simply, Mama, it's not I can't. Baby, her mother took her hand. I've seen the way you talk about him, about how he helped Caleb, how he treated you with respect, but he's married, Ella, and he's dangerous. What's your plan here? I don't have one.
I didn't mean for this to happen.
I know, but now it has, and you need to decide if you can live with the consequences because his world isn't like ours. In our world, you work hard and keep your head down and maybe you get ahead. In his world, people disappear. Businesses burn. Marriages are contracts, not love stories. Ella knew she was right, but knowing it and feeling it were different things. On the third day, Anna called. He needs to see you. Come tonight after dinner. Come to his study. The mansion was eerily quiet when Ella arrived. No sign of Alexa, thankfully. Anna met her at the entrance, her expression worried. Whatever he says, think carefully before you answer. He's not himself. I've never seen him like this. Gabriel's study was on the third floor, overlooking the city. Ella had never been inside before. It was masculine and elegant, dark wood, leather furniture, walls lined with books in multiple languages. Gabriel stood at the window, hands in his pockets, still as a statue.
Close the door. She did.
They stood in silence for a long moment. My marriage to Alexa was arranged, he said finally, not turning around. Her father's company had connections we needed. My father's organization had protection her family wanted. I was 28. She was 24. We both knew what we were signing up for. Ella didn't speak, just listened. I've tried to be fair to her, give her the life she wanted. Money, status, freedom to do whatever she pleased as long as she was discreet. In return, she played the role of Mrs. Barcelos. It worked well enough. He turned now, and Ella's breath caught at the intensity in his eyes. Until you, Mr. Barcelos. Gabriel. When we're alone. I'm Gabriel. Gabriel? She said softly. I never meant to cause problems in your marriage. I know. That's what makes this so damn complicated. He crossed to his desk, picking up a folder. Alexa's family sent this. It's a reminder of all the business arrangements tied to our marriage, contracts, deals, political connections. If I divorce her, it costs me a lot. So, you're going to stay with her? 3 days ago, I would have said yes. That's how this world works. You make sacrifices for the family, for the business.
Personal happiness is secondary.
He set down the folder. But then I realized I've been justifying my own unhappiness for years, telling myself that loving someone was a luxury I couldn't afford, that my life was set on a path and deviation wasn't possible. What changed? You slapped my wife for calling your son a bastard. He smiled slightly. You, this woman who has every reason to play it safe, to keep her head down, to accept whatever scraps of respect you're given, you stood up and defended what mattered to you. And I realized I've spent 15 years not doing that, not fighting for what I actually want. Ella's heart hammered. What do you want? Gabriel closed the distance between them in 3 strides. He didn't touch her, but she could feel the heat of him, smell his cologne, see the conflict and decision in his eyes. I want to wake up next to someone who reads Garcia Marquez in Spanish because she's determined to improve herself. I want to have dinner with a 5-year-old who asks a million questions and isn't afraid of me. I want to talk about books at midnight with someone who understands why they matter. His voice dropped lower. I want you, Ella. I want Caleb. I want a life that feels real instead of performed. You're married. Not for long. I met with my lawyers this morning. The divorce will be expensive and messy, but it's happening. Alexa and I signed a prenup. She'll be financially comfortable. Her family's contracts will need to be renegotiated, which will cost me time and money, but I'm doing it. Ella took a step back, her mind reeling. You can't blow up your entire life for me. For us, that's what I should have done years ago. Ella, I'm not doing this just because of you. You made me realize that I've been existing instead of living. But the life I want, it includes you if you want it too. Your world is dangerous. Yes, people will judge us, say terrible things. Yes, Caleb could be in danger just by association with you, which is why I've already arranged for security. Nothing will happen to him or to you. I promise. Gabriel's eyes were steady, certain. I know this is insane. I know you have every reason to say no and walk away, but I'm asking anyway. Be with me.
Let me do this right.
Divorce Alexa, make a clean break, and then we see where this goes. No pressure, no guarantees. Just possibility. Ella thought about her mother's warning, about the risks, about how this could all go horribly wrong. She thought about Caleb growing up in Gabriel's dangerous world. But she also thought about Gabriel sitting on a hospital bench reading to her son, about late-night conversations that felt like coming home, about how he'd protected her, stood up for her, seen her as a person instead of just a maid. Possibility, she repeated. That's all I'm offering. I can't promise perfect or safe or easy, but I can promise honest. I can promise I'll fight for us. And I can promise that whatever happens, you and Caleb will be protected. Before she could respond, the study door burst open. Alexa stood there, and she wasn't alone. Behind her were two men in expensive suits, her father and her brother. Ella realized from the family resemblance. I told you, Alexa said triumphantly. They're together. I have witnesses now. Her father stepped forward, an older man with cold eyes and a politician's smile. Senator Charles Dawson. Ella recognized him from news coverage. Gabriel, I'm disappointed. When Alexa called me in hysterics about your situation, I didn't believe it. The Barcelos family has always been known for their discipline, their respect for tradition. Senator Dawson. Gabriel's voice was ice. This is a private conversation in my private study. You weren't invited. I don't need an invitation to protect my daughter from humiliation. The senator gestured at Ella dismissively. This woman needs to be removed from your home immediately. And you and Alexa need to remember the agreements that bind your families together. Those agreements don't include tolerating abuse of my staff. Your staff? Alexa laughed shrilly. You just told her you're divorcing me for her. Don't pretend this is about employee treatment. The senator's expression hardened. Gabriel, let me be clear. If you proceed with divorcing my daughter, especially for someone like her, he didn't even look at Ella, you'll lose more than business contracts. I have friends in law enforcement and government. I can make your operations very difficult. The Barcelos family has always operated in a gray area. I could make that area much darker. It was a threat, clear and simple. Gabriel smiled, and it was the most dangerous expression Ella had ever seen on him. Senator, you forget who you're threatening. I have documentation of every illegal deal you've ever made through my family's connections. I have records of bribes, payoffs, and indiscretions that would end your political career in an afternoon. Do you want to threaten me with law enforcement? I'll bury you so deep you'll never see sunlight again. The senator's face went purple. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Gabriel pulled out his phone, showing the screen to the senator. Whatever was on it made the older man's face go white. I've been waiting for an excuse to cut ties with you for years. Your family is corrupt and sloppy, and you've been more liability than asset. So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to accept the divorce settlement my lawyers present. You're going to walk away quietly. And in exchange, all that documentation stays buried. Refuse and I'll send copies to every news outlet and prosecutor in 3 states. Alexa grabbed her father's arm. Daddy, do something. He can't. Yes, I can. Gabriel's attention turned to his wife. Alexa, you'll get everything we agreed on in the prenup, plus an additional settlement to keep you comfortable. But that's contingent on you leaving quietly and never harassing Ella or Caleb again. If I hear you've said one word against her, if you've tried to damage her reputation in any way, the deal is off and you get nothing. You can't do this to me, Alexa whispered, tears running down her face. Real ones this time, Ella realized. Despite everything, Alexa had never believed Gabriel would actually leave her. I already have. Ricardo has the papers ready to be filed tomorrow. You have 24 hours to sign them, or I proceed without your cooperation and make this as public and painful as possible. The senator straightened his jacket, trying to regain his dignity. You'll regret this, Barcelos. Maybe not today, but eventually. Maybe, but I won't regret staying in a loveless marriage built on blackmail and convenience. Get out of my house. After they left, Alexa sobbing, the senator making empty threats, her brother silent and furious. The study fell into shocked silence. Ella found her voice first. You just declared war on a U.S. senator for me. I declared independence from people who've been using me for years. Gabriel turned to her. But yes, also for you, for the possibility of us. This is insane, completely. He crossed to her, and this time he did touch her, just his hand against her cheek, gentle and certain. But I've spent 15 years being sane and strategic and putting everyone else first. I want to be insane. I want to be selfish. I want you. Ella closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. Every logical part of her brain was screaming warnings, but her heart, That traitor was already decided. Caleb comes first, she said finally. Always. If this puts him in danger, he'll have the same security I have. Better. Nothing happens to him. Ella on my life. And when your world comes calling, when there's violence or danger, or I'll handle it like I always have. But you and Caleb will be protected. That's not negotiable. She opened her eyes, looking up at him. Why me? Really? Because you're real. Because you read books that challenge you and defend your son like a lioness and work 3 jobs without complaining. Because you make me want to be better than the role I was born into. His thumb brushed her cheek, because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to be human instead of just powerful. Ella made her decision. She stood on her toes and kissed him. It was soft, tentative, full of promise and fear and possibility. Gabriel's arms came around her, pulling her close but not crushing her. The kiss deepened, and Ella felt years of loneliness and struggle, and keeping her head down, melt away. This was terrifying and wonderful, and probably a huge mistake. But it felt right. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to do this right, he promised. Clean divorce. Time for everyone to adjust. No rushing. We take this slow. How slow? He smiled. Well, maybe not that slow. They spent the next 2 hours in his study talking. Really talking about her dreams to finish her degree, about his plans to transition some of the family businesses into legitimate operations, about Caleb's future and how to blend their very different worlds. At midnight, Anna knocked softly. Mr. Barcelos. Alexa and her family have left the property, and Caleb woke up asking for his mama. Reality crashed back in. I should go, Ella said reluctantly. I know. Gabriel walked her to the door. Ella, no matter what happens next, no matter how messy this gets, thank you for what? For being brave enough to let me try. As Ricardo drove Ella and sleepy Caleb home, she looked out at the city lights and tried to believe this could work. She'd gone from being a struggling maid to being the woman Gabriel Barcelos was divorcing his wife for, the woman who'd stood up to a senator, the woman who'd changed everything with one slap and one kiss. It should have terrified her, and it did. But it also felt like destiny, like every bus ride and night shift and moment of struggle had been leading her to that library, to that conversation, to him. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Alexa had signed quietly, taking her settlement and moving to Charleston. The senator had tried twice to cause problems for Gabriel, but each time mysterious documents appeared in the press about his corruption. He stopped trying. Gabriel and Ella dated properly. Dinners, movies, letting Caleb get used to him as more than just Mr. Gabriel. The mansion staff watched their boss transform from a cold, controlled man to someone who laughed, who played with a 5-year-old, who looked at Ella like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Bianca called it the best thing that ever happened to her brother. Ricardo, gruff and loyal, admitted that he'd never seen Gabriel truly happy before. There were challenges. Press attention, judgment from some of Gabriel's business associates. Ella adjusting to security and wealth and a world she'd never imagined being part of. But they faced it together. And on a spring evening, almost a year after the day Alexa tore Ella's uniform, Gabriel proposed, not in the mansion, but in the tiny apartment where Ella had read Garcia Marquez by lamplight, where she dreamed of something better. I want to start from here, he explained on one knee in her worn living room. From where you were real before my world complicated everything. Ella Harris, will you marry me?
She said yes.
2 years later, Ella stood in the library of the mansion, no longer a maid, but the lady of the house, though she'd never quite gotten comfortable with the title. She watched through the window as Gabriel taught Caleb to ride a bike in the gardens, both of them laughing when the boy wobbled and caught himself. Her mother, fully recovered, lived in the guest house on the property. She'd made peace with Ella's choices, seeing how Gabriel cherished her daughter and grandson. Ella had finished her degree, studying literature at Emory. She was working on a thesis about Garcia Marquez, the writer who'd inadvertently changed her entire life. The house was different now, warmer. Gabriel had backed away from the most dangerous parts of the family business, focusing on the legitimate operations. They still had security, still lived with the reality of his world, but he built walls between his family and the violence. Mama Caleb, now 7 and brighter sunshine, ran in.
Did you see?
I rode without training wheels. I saw, baby, you were amazing. Gabriel followed, sweaty and grinning. He's a natural, completely fearless. He gets that from you, Ella said, rising to kiss him. He gets it from his mother, who slapped a senator's daughter and changed both our lives. Gabriel pulled her close. No regrets?
None.
You only that I didn't find you sooner. That night, after Caleb was asleep and the mansion was quiet, Gabriel found Ella in the library reading. He sat beside her, pulling her feet into his lap. What are you thinking about? He asked. Destiny. Coincidence? How I took a job as a maid and ended up here. You ended up here because you're brilliant and brave and refuse to be diminished. He kissed her ankle. I'm the lucky one in this story. We're both lucky. That too. They sat in comfortable silence, and Ella thought about the scared woman she'd been, taking a job she was overqualified for, hiding her son, just trying to survive. She thought about Alexa's cruelty and her own moment of breaking, the slap that changed everything. She thought about Gabriel looking at her in that hallway and choosing her over power, over convenience, over the path that was easier. And she thought about love. Real, complicated, hard-won love that had transformed them both.
Gabriel, she said softly.
Thank you for what? For seeing me. For choosing us. For being brave enough to want something real. He smiled, pulling her closer. Always. From that first day in the library when you were reading Garcia Marquez, I knew you were going to change my life. I just didn't know how completely. Outside, the city glowed with a million lights. Inside, a former maid and a mafia boss sat together in a library full of books, building a life neither of them had expected, but both of them had fought for. And it was enough, more than enough. It was everything. This story of Gabriel, Ella, and Caleb has reached its conclusion. A tale of how one woman's courage, one man's choice to change, and one moment of standing up for what matters transformed 3 lives forever. Thank you all for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please write in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who believes in second chances and love that fights against all odds, as your support is important for me to continue creating content. New stories arrive soon. Until next time.